All right, episode 161, folks. This is the Hitech Podcast, and you have joined both of your hosts, myself, William Illingworth, and my co-host, Joshua Swartz. We are here to do the episode, as always, of the Hitech Podcast, brought to you by Harness Tech. Now, I am jazzed from the get-go with this episode. It's going to be so much fun because it's going to be everything about our brand, everything about Dadsigner, everything about Michael Smith, just so cool. But before we get there, I mean, you need to hold your breath because, oh gosh, all right, I'm going to see if Josh goes blue in the face and if he passes.
I'm not
out,
actually committing to this. I immediately regretted every decision I just did.
Before we get to the good stuff, as always, folks, or as we try to always remind you, follow us. Share, like, subscribe. We really appreciate that. You can find us on social at Hitech Podcast or Hitech Pod. Things like X and YouTube are at Hitech Podcast, while Instagram and Threads are at Hitech Pod. I think in general, if you start typing at Hitech Podcast Pod, you're going to get to us on any or all of those. But easier than all that is just head over to our website, hitechpod.us, where all of those socials are linked, and you can click on little buttons and get to the places you want to be. We greatly appreciate that because if you subscribe, it helps us reach more people. Like, that's how the algorithms work. The more people who subscribe and watch and listen to your stuff, the more episodes you do, the higher you come up in things. When someone searches like the word Notion, we might come up at the top with that if we have enough episodes about Notion, which will eventually happen, I promise you. So other than that, other than the socials, other than the subscribing, if you have an idea for the Hitech Podcast, if you'd like to be a guest, if you'd like to join us, if you'd like to fight us, if you literally want to get in the ring and be like, episode something or other, you guys said this was so totally wrong and you have a reason why,
verbally fight. I would like to clarify that we're not like going into fight club mode for Hitech.
I'm ready to fight. No, I was going to go.
I mean, Will fight you. We've been working on some Taekwondo stuff. So I know Will can fight you. I can tell you how to instructional design Taekwondo. I can theoretically beat you up. Will can physically beat you up.
You're going to get there.
It'll be
going to learn.
But yeah, you can just have an inbox at hitechpod.us.
Slide in. We'd love to talk to you and get things started. All right, that's the social stuff. That's all the fun things. Now, for what's coming ahead of you, we were introduced to Michael Smith by my brother-in-law, Pat Bonner, who is Casey Bonner's husband. Casey, my sister-in-law, has been on the podcast before. She was on, I think, maybe was it twice now, or at least once?
Yeah, Casey's been on.
Yeah, Josh is going to get there.
Do some talking that is totally normal and not.
She's been on to talk about what it's like to be a teacher and some other things. She has been on twice. Thank you, Casey.
She was on episode 47 to talk during our accelerated learning series back in 2022. If you haven't listened to that, you're a new joiner of the Hitech Podcast. Go listen to it. That was a fun series. And then Casey also joined us in episode 85 because she was a first-time teacher at that time, and she was telling us some things she wished she would have known before becoming a first-time teacher. That was also a very fun episode, so you should go check that out as well. We should have Casey back on for a little while.
First time and last time teaching. Well, it was great for her. It was a great year. But they introduced us to Michael Smith, and we're so very thankful for that because Michael and his business, Dadsigner, became the new face or created the new face of the Hitech Podcast. We had a brand that Josh's wife, Sam, had built for us some years ago. It was beautiful. It was lovely. But as Josh and I were moving away from the academics sense of things, we felt we needed something fresh. And we got to Michael. So very thrilled for that. This is going to be a big Dadsigner ad. I'm not joking about it. It's not like literally we've been paid for it. We want to promote Michael and his work because it's so good. If you head over to his website, dadsigner.com, if you're not sure about that, it's on screen, but it's also like the word designer, except instead of DE, it's DAD, dadsigner.com.
It also helps me to think of it as Dadsigner. You know?
Well, that's how it's spelled. Yeah, Dadsigner.
Yeah, like I often screw it up in chat. I don't know if I'll mention this to Michael when we're actually interviewing him, but Michael, if you're re-listening to this episode, I'm sorry, but I've messed up your company's name multiple times. Only in Discord. So Dadsigner. Think of it, you need your dad to sign you something for a trip. You know?
You need a co-signer for an apartment or a new car. Michael will be there for you and sign apparently. So we're gonna hear a lot about like I'm planning to ask Michael about how he came up with some of the stuff, just hear some of the creative side, but then getting into how he used his tools like Trello, like Figma to do the collaborative work. So that's pretty much it. Anything that I missed, Josh?
Yeah, that one super key thing that we talked about before. I'm just joking. I got nothing.
Every time.
I don't...
All right. Let's turn it over to the interview with Michael. So we have him, the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Smith. Our Dadsigner is here with us. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Great.
Well enough. We're trying to stay fresh, right? I really appreciate that you've joined us. You already made point of us that your colors, you use some lamp colors to bring ambiance, remind people of the brand. Michael thinks of brand through and through and through. So I mean, that's just awesome. But thank you for building everything that everyone sees here. This is a beautiful thing you've done for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I can't say it was my favorite project all year because that would be mean to the other clients, but it's top. It's of the top.
Yeah, we love that.
Things I got.
We got it. It's not the favorite. We get it, Michael. Yeah, it's not the favorite. All the other people listening, you guys were cool too. It's
We've been talking about Dadsigner and you since the first episode dropped. So people have heard the name for the last few episodes, but we'd love to hear from your lips directly. Like, what is Dadsigner? What motivated you? I mean, there's a couple of bits on the website that kind of make the point, define the joke of Dadsigner or designer or whatever. But in your own words, what is Dadsigner? How'd this get started for you?
Yeah, so Dadsigner is a freelance project that I started in 2017, and it's morphed over time. But in 2024, so January 2024, it became the full-time gig. Like what I like to say, design subscriptions and fatherly advice. So design subscriptions, it's similar to a retainer model or things like that. But I'm a freelance graphic designer, do brand and marketing design in a subscription model. So people can sign up for a month or stay on for longer, which is always better. And you get unlimited designs. We work on one project at a time, guaranteed 2 business day delivery on a substantial amount of work. And yeah, it's been what I've been doing full time now for the last 7 months, and it's been going great.
What are the kind of the realia you've worked across or media you've worked across? Like, we're a podcast, but what all kind of designs and businesses are you working with?
Yeah, so the primary 2 are agencies and tech companies, and helping them with everything from annual reports to web design, blog images, brands, sub-brands, you name it. I've done brochures this year, print material, anything you can think of. Like, I've probably touched trade show graphics.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are I'm from Michael's relative hometown or current living area, and I think, aren't there some things like even around like the theater and certain areas in the town that are like up and out and available that people can see of your stuff?
Yeah. So but I did it a while ago, but Broad Theater in Souderton, their logo design, as well as some of their sub logos I've done. I'm trying to think of what else locally. Nutty Novelties, if you're a peanut butter fan,
there you go.
Did their original logo, and we're in conversations about new things.
Okay. Folks, if you do like peanut butter, I mean, this is just left field, but my sister-in-law fell in love with Nutty Novelties when she'd come back to visit, but for a while she lived in Texas. She would get Nutty Novelties delivered to Texas because she loved these peanut butter and nut butter products. So definitely, I'm not going to link them. You can Google them. You can find them, but Nutty Novelties is definitely a good thing. So a lot of cool things though for you. Like, you're not just like, oh, I'm just cranking out podcasts or I'm just sitting there on magazines. Like, your theaters, nut butters.
I was gonna say there's definitely a better way to say that.
I feel like I was gonna walk myself into a wall with that one.
Always
podcasts, etc. That's cool. And have you been a career graphic designer? Is this something you fell into? Like, Dadsigner's now the thing, but like, how did you get into the work?
Yeah, I've been doing marketing design work since, finished college in 2008, which was a terrible time to find a job. But since my first real design job was in 2009,
Wow.
so since that point, I've
Okay.
been doing predominantly in-house design work for companies, couple tech companies, and some interesting other industries. Short stint in an agency. Realized that agency life isn't my favorite, and but yeah, design work now for over 15 years.
That's
awesome.
awesome. I
mean,
appreciate just a little bit of history.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing for us because you're the first one we've interviewed on the podcast where we've like taken your services. You know, like most of the people we talk to, either we were like friends with them, coworkers, or like groups of people at different companies or things, and tools we've used before. But like I mean, it speaks to the stuff we have on the screen and stuff. It was very apparent, Michael, working with you from the beginning, you had experience in doing it. And I think Will and I's joke, like immediately, I think you'd sent us like one thing right away. For those who know, we've talked on the podcast, he's going to be on a little bit later, but our social media manager, Chris, was really working with Michael a lot. The two of you guys were going back and forth a lot on stuff and working, but you like handed us the first thing, and Will and I immediately were like, well, we don't know what we're doing. Like,
why did we ever try to do this without professional? Was I think the thought. Yeah.
So we love the services. I'm curious, what took you, there's a little bit of this as we were talking to you beforehand, Michael. We had another friend on before this talking a little bit about her consulting. And so we're just trying to, I think, talk a little bit about kind of the consulting environment and doing that work. I think one of the things that immediately stood out to me about what you were doing when we first learned about you was doing the subscription model. Like, what took you, because that's not, I don't think it's common, I would say, in consulting. Like, Will and I have done consulting. We definitely have not done subscription. Although after talking to you multiple times, there's been one or two times
thought about it.
Will and I are like, maybe we should just change all the agreements we've drafted out to subscription. So what took you down that road? How has that been going? What kind of started that for you, other than looking at Netflix and going, you know, that looks great?
Yeah. There's actually a friend of mine was actually using a design subscription service called Design. He's still around. He kind of pioneered it as a solo practice. Okay. So like Design Pickle and Penji, and these have been around for a little while. But Design was kind of a new single person option. And so Brett at Design got really efficient at this model, and as one does, created a course on how to replicate this, but did it in a super lo-fi way. It's all audio recordings, a couple screen shares, and he priced it at like $150. And so I bought it to just see if there were like shortcuts that I could learn, because a lot of it he has talked about publicly quite a bit. And the model really resonated with me, because one of the downsides of doing contract-based freelance work is usually take a certain percentage of the project up front, and then the remainder once the project is done. This puts control completely in the hands of the client as to when it's done, right? Right. You can set a certain number of feedback rounds and this kind of thing, but unless there's explicit in the contract that feedback has to be provided within 5 to 7 days, these things can drag out for a while. So your cash flow is completely shot. And the other thing I dislike doing is quoting on projects. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of sticker shock. Design work at different levels can be pretty expensive. And a lot of times people aren't ready for that price point. And so you give them a quote and then they're like, oh, that's too much money. And then it's too late. Like, you've already kind of lost that person. And so there's a bit more transparency with the subscription model, where it's like, it's $24.99 upfront. You get it for the whole month. If we need to go into second month, we can, and hopefully we do. And then there's like clear timelines on when I'm going to provide stuff. But if you want to take all the time in the world to provide feedback, that's fine, because we'll probably bleed into the next month.
Yeah. Well, and we found like we came with a pretty clear Christmas list, if you will, and we're just like, can we hit these things? You're like, you said yes from the get go, and I know you'd be reasonable if you're like, that's too many things, but it's like we operated in that system, like, you know, one project at a time, 2-day turnaround, whatever. We hit our goals. We were like within a day or two, but we had the short list. And what amazed me from the turnaround was like, oh, we need a new logo. Friends, that's actually like for us, that was kind of the hardest part because Michael is trying to capture ideas, vision, concepts in a visual representation. And so you came up with like 3-4 good early leads, but it's like, oh crap, I didn't expect the logo to take so many rounds of revision, right? And that's a good thing that we're in the subscription model, because if you just told me, dude, it's going to be $700 for a logo, I would have walked away. But I understand that logo took a lot of the work and helped decide things like the colors and other things that went into the larger brand guide. And when we came to the brand guide stage, I'm not trying to undersell it, but like you were able to pull things together quicker because you made so many decisions at the logo stage. And I'm just oversimplifying, but like it went so well, even though logos took longer than I thought it did, other things were so much quicker. And we still got all together, got like 10 to 15 brand assets and a whole brand guide from you in a month. I was just stunned, but I get it where it's like, yeah, if you told somebody $700 for a logo, they're walking on you, or $500, or maybe $200 is where somebody might be like, sure. 300. They're like, nah, that's too much for a GIF or a PNG. Like they're not thinking, but you did so much work. I could see all the versions you created, I can only imagine how much it goes into thinking through the font. And that's why we hired you. I have no idea what that takes.
Yeah. And it's you know, we went into this project knowing that our agreement was going to be a month. And so like, I keep harping on this idea of, oh, you know, it's best if you go 2-3 months. Yeah. So the longer someone stays subscribed, the more efficient we get, because I know their brand. I have all of the assets. They're like, you know, on like the shelf right in front of me versus, oh, I got to go to this link to go to this place to download these pieces. Like I pull it all into my own files so that I can work quickly. That's one of the reasons the subscription works. And so yeah, there's like efficiency gained over time. So like similar to what you were talking about, like all of this stuff I created with the logo for you guys, I started to work it into different scenarios and settings to show how might this look. And then we were able to pull those assets into the brand guide and speed things up further along.
Right. Yeah. And that's where folks don't, you know, we want you to come and subscribe to Michael. I think that you want it as well. You don't know it, but if you need a brand work, but where we worked out was we needed, I'll say 15 items overall. We needed a couple backdrops. We needed a logo. If you were working with something like a Nutty Novelties and they've got, you know, let's say 20 products and then different sizes of their products and all this other stuff, and they've got a company brand, and that's where you need, you know, a month is just not going to be enough. And you need time to, of course, get the core components, but then start to build that out, like you said, on that shelf of items. But it's still, I've worked with graphic designers in corporate, like within internal teams and stuff. And it's fun trying to get on their attention. It's like, oh yeah, they're building stuff for the customers, for marketing, whatever. I need a logo for something internally. Yeah, I can get to you in 3 months. It's like that. It's a tough world when you're trying to work with designers. If they, you know, you all don't have unlimited time. You've got to work with what you've got. So it makes sense. And folks, go get 2 or 3 months with Michael. You won't be disappointed. One of the things though that we're a little bit further down the line on like how it all came to be. One of the things that stood out to Josh and I don't know if Josh has more specific thoughts or questions on this, but it was definitely your onboarding. You actually onboarded us as clients. You had a system in place for that. Was that something that came out of that course, or is this something you brought out of your own genius?
Yeah. I used to, when I worked at the last full-time job, I did a lot of hiring and a lot of onboarding. And one of the things that I realized, and I learned this from like the HR team that was there and the managers that I had was the better you onboard someone, the quicker they come up to speed and are ready to go. And so I've kind of learned how to onboard over the last 4.5 years. So like credit to the people that set up the systems and kind of taught me that in corporate. And also in the course, Design Joy, he just showed you his Trello board. And he was like, these are the cards I have in my onboarding column. And like, these are the things. And so, yes, I stole those pieces and added my own flair to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was the thing that impressed me the most as we were jumping in. I think a lot of, we'll talk a little bit here about your branching us into the Trello collaboration side of where we wanted to talk. But like, I think the thing that stuck out to Will and I the most about that was, that you leveraged the tool itself, Trello, where we're going to be doing all the collaboration to also house all the onboarding. And I think that was what stuck out to us a lot. Was it was just really easy as a client to come in. And granted, Will and I already had decent amount of experience with Trello. So like we knew how to use Trello, but there was a lot of ways that you were using it that we weren't, we hadn't used it that way, or we weren't necessarily a specific way we were going to be working together. And I think you did a really good job of just onboarding Chris and us and our team onto like what that was going to look like. It was really easy to just know this is where we need to start. This is what we need to start doing. Plug these many things. I also loved that you had, I forget which column it was, but it was like there wasn't allowed to be more than one thing in that column, which the project manager in me just loved that. But you were already onboarding
Chris
us prioritizing. And I think that was such a big thing because I'm sure you've experienced that. Like Will and I, looking at it, are fresh too of having we were in the middle of working on something at that point that was not going great as far as like getting it off the board. And so like all of my mind was there, and it was just, I think you did a really great job of showing a client here's where you're going to start. And this is what I need you to prioritize immediately. And like, this is the one thing. This is how we're going to work together. You're going to give me this thing. And I think what Will was laughing about is I'm pretty sure Chris put more than one thing in your column.
The first thing
and we were like, Chris, there's only supposed to be one thing in that column.
But then the expectation was set.
Yeah, that's what stuck out the most to me. I think that was what I was just so impressed by, is like, it was a very clear collaboration system. We were joking before we started. I immediately stole like 2 things from you. Like there was like, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to apply this to the client we're working with. And it actually went really well. Side note, what we applied for Michael, we didn't end up using Trello, but what we did in Notion actually was a big game changer for us working with the one client we were working with to try to get them to prioritize things a little bit better. But yeah, anyway, I just thought that was cool.
Yeah. I feel like there's an expectation as a subscriber of anything to have a dashboard or an account, and this is your account.
Yeah.
Right? Without it, I mean, the other thing like that hasn't been said here is like Trello saves me about 1,500 emails a week.
Yep.
Which is so nice.
Yeah, I can only imagine, like with the back and forth, sometimes it was like, hey, here's this version. Okay, we like it. All right, we're done. Boom. But sometimes it was like, and it's like that would be, your inbox would just die. It would cry.
And everyone can see it. Anyone on the team can see it. And there's no like question. Well, you said, well, this is the conversation. Where did I say that? Or where
for our team's sake, right? We elected Chris to take the lead. Chris has kind of the background in the social media, his background in brand. He has a better eye than us. We wanted him to be the lead, but we watched the entire time. I will admit now, if Chris doesn't know that,
I had Trello open the entire time. There were multiple times it got open. I couldn't help myself. It's just the personality I am,
But that's good, right? Because as a team, we stayed on top of things. Hey, Chris, we haven't heard something from you in 3 hours, 6 hours, one day. Or hey, gone. I saw he gave this. it wasn't a problem, but like, oh, we saw this thing, right? And we're thinking this, like, we could have a quick offline conversation, the three of us, and then Chris could come back and just give you an answer. It was just so good. Now we're putting this right out there. We've said Trello is this big tool. You're managing the client. With us, I think it was Trello and Figma, right? Is there any other primary tech in your stack? Like, do you need something else, or have you added anything?
On the client side, no. Well,
Okay.
except for, so yeah, on the client side, if there are some things that need to be done in Adobe software,
Sure.
especially print materials. So I will go and design something in InDesign, let's say. Well, now the files are huge and too big to attach to a Trello card. And so I'll send Dropbox links for people to download. So on the client side, Dropbox as well.
That's a pretty lean stack, though, for client facing.
Yeah, it is. And then some clients, I want to be careful what I say. Some clients utilize Canva.
Right.
Okay.
And so they've added me to their Canva team. And sometimes I'll have to recreate things in Canva, but I tell everyone up front, like, I'm not designing this in Canva. I will design it, and then we will import it into Canva.
Yeah. Respect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And Canva's a great tool for people that don't know how to use the other ones. It's a fine tool. It's just harder for me to design there than it is in other tools.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's Canva is the one that we will push as Will and I, the non-designers, who have to deal with that stuff, even though Will and I both have used Adobe. But I 100% get it. I mean, my wife is also a graphic designer. Like it's at that level of what you guys are doing. Adobe is absolutely, there's a reason they're the king in this world as far as what they're doing. I'll bust on them for making it too difficult to get to clicks. Like, if they could reduce things from 38 clicks, but I'm curious, Michael, before we jump into, because I think we want to show a little bit of what you were doing too on Trello for those who are watching video. For those not watching video, stop it, go watch the video. But I am curious. One of the things I think I find the most difficult, and I think some listeners would as well, whether you're designing, like instructional designers, taking it back for a second, those listening, instructional designers try to get subject matter experts into things, doing stuff. I still find it very difficult to like get clients or subject matter experts to like get on board with logging into the tool we're using and not sending us emails. How have you been able to work through that? Because I know with Will and I, that tension wouldn't have popped up because Will and I and Chris are all happy to use whatever tools. But I'm sure that's come up before. Like, how have you dealt with that and been able to get people in?
Yeah, if they email me, I remind them that they need to be commenting in the Trello board.
Okay.
And
man after my own heart.
Oh, sorry, I lied. There is another piece of tech client side. There's two other pieces of tech client side. Stripe. So if you click on subscribe now, you go to a Stripe landing page and you pay. Stripe then sends a Zapier to Aweber, which is my email marketing. It's my email. I used to work at Aweber, so I still have an account and it works really well. So there's an autoresponder that then sends, hey, we got your subscription. We're working on your Trello dashboard. I'll be sending you an email, within the next 24 hours with all of that information. And then like, it's been surprising how seamless people have slipped into Trello. Cause it's like, again, you go to your account is Trello. And so I've set everyone up to feed into that system. And then once they're in there, they kind of get it. And I've even had feedback of like, people have Trello open at either in a tab or on the they might have downloaded the app, but it shows a notification anytime I do something in the board, so they know to go look at it. So like they see the red dot and then they go and look at Trello.
Okay, very cool.
That's awesome. I'm happy it works because I only ever used Trello with a team and we would like pass things back and forth, but we were both stunned at how efficient, quick, on top of it all of us were. We just worked so well. It was like, if I could do every project this way, I would be very happy to have a team that just gelled as quickly as it did. And you know, we just met practically when you were working with us. Have your clients, you know, a little bit on what Josh was saying there, but has anybody kind of balked on anything, or people are adopting and besides the price, you know, money's money, but like once they're in, has anybody kind of given you something that's helped change your method, or has it been pretty consistent? Uh-oh.
No, I'm here. I think you asked, has anyone balked at anything?
Yeah.
Not really. There have been times where something needs to go to print. There are two priorities at any given moment, and we've kind of just taken them as a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
If you're early in your first month of subscription, the goal is to under promise and over deliver. And so early on, and this is probably not a good habit forming activity, but early on, I'm trying to convince you that this is the best thing you've ever seen. And so I'm trying to do like 24-hour turnaround, if not quicker. I'm trying to like cram as many projects into that first week or first 2 weeks as I possibly can. So that you're feeling the value and being like, dude, this is a no-brainer. I would pay double for this. And so I think the biggest balk is that at times people have had multiple priorities or needed something like in an hour. And I always just try to work with them to figure out what exactly we can do to make that happen.
The negotiation step. That's nuts.
That's cool.
But also coming from the design world, I mean, that was normal every day for every project. And so now it's like every once in a while, I'm like, oh, you haven't had an emergency yet?
I do like the under promise, over deliver concept at the beginning. Like I feel like that's the weighing you're always doing when you're trying to, whether you're working on projects with people, you know, those listening, working at your work that you're working on projects with people, or you're contracting or whatever you're doing. I think our human tendency is to overpromise at the beginning of like every project. It's always like, if I had $1 for every person that says, oh yeah, I can do all of that by like tomorrow, like we would all be rich if we all got that, because I would be giving you guys dollars. I would be so rich I'd be able to hand out dollars. It's I think crazy how much we overpromise in the beginning, because we like to be idealists about how much we can get done. And so that's the biggest thing I stress with people, even looking at projects or work, is like, be over realistic. Like be like, not to the point that you're like denying everything a client's bringing to you, or like saying everything's impossible. That's different. But like, I think also just being like, you know, realistic with yourself, and then pushing yourself to get more done than what you promised, so that, to your point, Michael, it kind of feels like you're over delivering, but all you're really doing is over delivering on the under promise you were giving. Like it's a mentality thing, but I think it helps us better plan. It helps clients plan better. It helps everybody work on what they're doing. Sorry, well, you hit
it there. No, you know, you're good, dude. You hit there with the point of mentality, because I think there's some psychology to this that's important, right? When we overpromise, people feel good immediately, and that can make us it can make us look good, right? So if we overpromise, they feel good, so we look good, so we feel good. It's very immediate feedback loop. If we underpromise but overdeliver, they are still going to be happy. But the truth is, when you make those overpromises, anything can happen between the promise and delivery, and you may not deliver. Whereas if you underpromise but overdeliver, they're happy because they've received something. They have a deliverable, and that's why they're happy. The psychology, I think, is true of, like, in both cases. Somebody's happy, but the promise stage means that something could go wrong. Whereas on the delivery stage, everybody actually is satisfied with both the deliverable you've created and the deliverable hopefully they've received. I suspect you've been on both sides of that, Michael.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And in this model, you kind of navigate it throughout as well. Cause like there's a promise of every 2 days we will deliver something.
Yeah.
And there's a story I have told a bunch of people on one of my clients had a 12-page annual report that needed to be designed from scratch. They had a brand guide and all that kind of stuff, but a 12-page annual report is not a 2-day project. And like the client knew that, right? Hey, this is going to come in batches. But what ended up happening was at the end of day 2, I needed to give an update, right? Because like they needed to know where things were at. It's the end of day 2. And at the end of day 2, I was actually 8 pages in. And I knew I only had 4 pages left, and they were kind of skeletoned out, sketched in InDesign. And so what I did was I went in to the card and I said, hey, I know you should probably see something today, but if you wait till tomorrow, I'll give you the whole thing. And so it's kind of like that. Like I recognize that I'm not necessarily meeting the expectation of 2 days, but with an extra 12 hours to get the entirety of an annual report, like first draft of 12 pages is a lot of work. Right. And so there is also that where it's like, hey, I might not always over deliver in 2 days, but I over delivered in just 12 hours more.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the value in that month of subscription, how much more they could get after those 3 days and the rounds of feedback, of course. But like, if they had just paid you your monthly rate for that 3 days of work, they still wouldn't have everything they need. And yet they're going to get the month's amount of time to continue to refine and improve it. I mean, I see the value through and through.
Yeah. This episode is basically just convincing me that Hardest Tech needs to get a subscription model. That's really just what this episode has been. I've been like on the cliff for a long time, and Michael's just basically like, kicked me off the hill.
Here's a funny thing. I can't talk about it in too much detail, but I do have a client that is about to launch a subscription model based off of having worked with me. And obviously I'll benefit from that because of what they'll be offering will also trickle down to me, but they are also doing it. So it's I don't know if addictive is the right word, but it's like, this makes sense.
Well, and in the world, like when we design e-learning, for instance, we have to be thinking through, an entire narrative. So sometimes that's 5 slides, sometimes it's 35 slides. And like you said, I hate quoting because there are 5-slide modules that will take as much time and effort as 30-slide modules. It's a fact. If we did a subscription, the number, in my mind, I'm thinking the number would have to be dumb. That's my thing, Josh. Like it takes so much work to get it done and built, but if people sign up, it's
So that is the thing with subscriptions, right? You trade off the per project cost for a hopeful higher LTV. So lifetime value, right? Yeah. And so I had a client from January through mid-July, and they were awesome. If they would have come to me with every project that I've completed for them throughout the year, I probably would have made 10 times the amount if I quoted by my normal project rate.
Sure.
However, they would have said no. Going back to the logo conversation, they probably would have said no to most of those quotes because that price point was so high. But because of the efficiency with the Trello board and like all of these different systems that we've created, I'm able to provide that service at a lower price point. And in the end, they were able to afford me for a longer period of time, and it helped me sustain a business, right? And so, yes, in some senses, some people hate the design subscription model because they think it devalues design, right? I would never have created a brand guide, 15 brand assets, and a logo design for a company for $1,650.
Right.
But in the bigger scheme of things, it pays off.
Yeah. I understand. And
There you
I
go.
hope it continues to pay off, because I'll stop trying to blow smoke up your, because I love what you've accomplished. I love the ethos. When I first saw the website, I was in love, but just seeing the end result of what you're capable of. We are personally excited for when we want to redo our harness tech brand, because we need to start making money again with the harness tech brand before we get there. But like, literally our logo right now is, did you just type in the letter H and the
I
letter T
literally
white,
made it,
and
and
then
I didn't know it was going to be on the website. Will, we needed something for tutorials. I don't know. Michael,
but
listen.
this
is
it's
before
doing the
you
work.
highly judge me, because I can tell he's going to the website right now. I
It's totally open.
I want you to know, I literally made it because we had a contract with a tutorial tool. We needed something on the help center, so I made like literally in 5 minutes a thumbnail that could pop up. I didn't know it was going to be on our website 7 months later.
Nah,
Okay,
it's fine.
Like, out. It's been a casket. That's a whole other story. We'll talk about that differently. Let's transition now real quick. I think with some of the time we have left, I do actually want to take a look at what you're doing in Trello and have you kind of walk us through what you've been doing. Because for those listening, whether you're listening just audio right now and you can't get to video just yet, I would encourage you to get to video when you can, on YouTube, on the website, on Spotify, wherever you want. It's there. You can subscribe too. It's fine. You can go check out the video, because what Michael's going to show us here, Will and I have seen obviously from a client perspective already. I think it's super cool. So I think visuals also help kind of give some anchor to what you've been doing and what we've been describing. So I say let's share that Trello board and not the Harness Tech website, and open that up and take a look at what's there.
All right, I will. All right,
This is it.
so we're here, and we had some tech stuff to figure out, but we are ready to go and look at Michael's wonderful Trello. Could you give us like one or two in, Josh? Excellent, Michael, you got the wheel.
Yeah, awesome. So this is the Trello board, and all of them for all of the clients are the same. So 4 columns. We got the start here column. So as we were talking earlier about the onboarding, that's where that is. And then within that column, you've got a whole onboarding card that has details on, the information for how to do everything. I can't even remember what the columns are. And I even recorded a little Loom video for onboarding to Dadsigner and Trello for people that wanted to watch that. So that's, kind of like your starter card. Then there is how to use Figma. So for people that haven't used Figma before, there's a little tutorial. It just links out to Figma help docs, as well as another Loom video where I kind of recorded how I organize Figma files, which is pages within projects. Then how to provide feedback, and the TLDR there is however you want. Just make sure you tag me in the comment in the card afterwards. Which is another thing that like people often forget, is to tag me. But I have turned off a lot of email notifications from Figma and whatnot, again, to minimize the inbox cruft. And so tag me in here because I'm in Trello all day. And then there's a couple other cards. The blue one is your design files. So your core Figma link lives there. If you have a Dropbox folder, it lives there. That way you can know just to go to that card and you can access those things rather than having to dig through the comments of the specific cards. Then there's a brand directory, which is primarily from the client to me. So if there are any brand documents, style guide, logos, whatnot, folks load them here. Make sure I have permissions to the folders, and then usually like Google Drives go here, or Dropbox folder, or Box goes here. But it just gives me a place to go. Sometimes people don't put it in here. They'll put it in the first card, and then I will go in and add things to the brand directory so I don't have to go searching. And then the last one is the manage your subscription, which is just tells you how much you're paying a month, what's included in your plan, and when you're going to renew, and the Stripe link to go out and manage your account if you need to cancel or pause. There's actually another card in there now that is not represented on this board, and it's the holiday and vacation card. And basically it states which days are holidays for Dadsigner, which means they're not business days.
Okay.
And if I'm going to take an extended vacation period, it lists when those dates are and what the policy is around that, which is basically for every 5 business days I'm out of office, you get to a week with a bonus card in the active column.
Okay.
Cool.
That's really cool. That's a good idea. Yeah, I love this. This was the thing that was so, I think, jumped out to us when we first started doing it. For context, Michael, like, I think, and those listening, what was helpful for us and translating a little bit into like the e-learning world and development is at the time we were trying to figure out how to work with a client in a similar way. We had like tutorials we were creating. We were trying to figure out like how the problems we were having were them committing to things that we'd be able to work through, and us accepting that we'd work through. We scheduled out stuff, and then like day 4 in, immediately everything just not going the way you wanted to plan. And also trying to get them more into using a singular tool. We were getting a lot of emails, a lot of things. And one of the things I did right away after looking at some of this was like, I love, first of all, great work on using Loom. We've talked about Loom on the podcast before. I love Loom. And so immediately just jumped into like, it didn't look like this because we're using Notion to do it, but I immediately just started dropping in. I think, Will, it was not long after that we created like for that client, a client dashboard very quickly. And we were like, everything is going here. No matter what you send us an email, every document, everything we do, every ounce of tasks we're going to work through, that's going to go there. And I ended up dropping quick onboarding videos on, like you recorded, that for me took like 2-3 minutes to record. I like very much, I think what I liked about your videos is it was very informal. It was very like, I'm just gonna record this video real quick so you know what's going on. You have some place you can come back to like learn about it. And that was really helpful for us. We ended up doing that pretty quickly, and it ended up working really well for us as well. And we changed a couple other things we were doing with the client as well, but the project turned around after we ended up doing the dashboard system and deciding to use switching to Kanban board. I mean, that's Trello's natural setup, but I had switched to a Kanban board with them because we wanted to see how it worked. Apparently that guy really loved Kanban boards. We didn't know that at the time. So we moved it. It was like immediately straight.
You know, it's just so nice. Just drag the card.
Anyway.
Yeah,
that's cool. With our completed here, right? Like this is what we used, folks. And that complete column has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in it. You know, that represents our brand guide, which is, let's say, 20 pages long, right? That's a fantastic piece or asset that we got from Michael. But like the logo is one item. Well, that new logo pack is a long conversation of all the stuff we go back and forth on, and it results in one logo. While the brand guideline card technically is like tons of assets, but you know, this didn't become, I guess my point of that is it didn't become unwieldy. We didn't end up with 100 cards here in 1 month. We were able to kind of keep things tight, keep things organized. And, you know, on the other side of it, we have an asset pack that has 2 things in it, but we were able to control the conversation with just 5 cards. That's a testament to you, I think, for organization, for delivering for your own sake, not, again, you know, filling up the inbox, but keeping things where you need them. I loved it.
Yeah. And those cards are all generated by the client. So Chris, you know, created all of these cards. At one point, they all lived in backlog. They spent various amounts of time in active, and then, and again, you were joking around about people that love dragging cards across Kanban boards. I don't move cards in this setup. It is entirely on the client. And so whatever is in the active column means that is the thing that we're working on, and you get to decide. If you need to drag something to the backlog, you can, and drag something new into active, you can. If you thought something was complete and it needs to come back into active, you can do it. But just one card at a time in that column, and you get to decide also when something's done. So dragging it into the complete, and it works great. no, you don't even have to say like, thanks, this is done. I just know because it's in the complete column that's now done.
Which is honestly clear communication, right? Like
Yeah.
there's something to like the K thanks email that is sweet, but can drive all of us nuts. Like, we all need 10 K thanks emails. No, we're good. Just move it over next, get the work done. So
Yeah.
I'm curious.
One of my
Michael,
favorite.
I was just gonna say, I'm curious, like for us, I remember us having some conversation about priority and things what we're working through. Do you ever work through with the clients, like if they're unsure what order to like throw things in? Because I know, like for us, obviously, our team was familiar with using a Kanban, so we knew like backlog, we're gonna put the highest priority at the top. We'll move it over into active. We want you to work on it. Have you had to work with clients before to kind of walk them through and help them prioritize things? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, for the most part, people know.
Okay.
There is one client who came in. He traded out with someone else, and started adding his own columns. Which I didn't really balk at, because most of them were like sub columns to backlog.
Sure.
Like Icebox. It's like, okay, I would just drag it to the bottom, but if you want a different column for it, I get it. No big deal. It didn't mess up the core aspects of how it works. And so it was like, whatever. If that's how you want to organize things, you can create a new column and add the Icebox. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool.
Any other, fireworks, rocket ships that we need to hit here? Or we kind of, I think, may have covered it.
I think we covered it. Yeah, I have actually never seen the client side version of what this looks like. Go. It's very similar to my side. I just have where it says your boards, I just have all the different client boards. But it's good to know that you can't see those. That's how it's supposed to work. But I've never verified it.
That's perfect.
This will be hilarious if live on the Hitech Podcast, Michael finds out, oh wait, they can see all my boards. Whoa.
You're like, oh, your client, you have a Nike client? Oh,
we were moving. I've been moving stuff to active for months now, Michael, and other clients. You've had
Nah, it's good. It's good.
Oh, man.
Thank you for coming on this ride with us. Thank you for the work. We love the brand, but definitely, folks, if you're interested in Michael and what he's doing, if you know someone who may be interested, so I'm assuming you're ready to work with nonprofits, big corp, or little companies. So head over to dadsigner.com. That's on screen if you don't know. DADSIGNER.com, folks. If you're just listening, you'll be able to check it in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate taking the time.
Yeah, this was a ton of fun, and I'm excited for what you guys are doing and the refresh of the podcast.
Yeah, man, we're stoked, and we can't wait for you to come refresh Harness Tech too. So we'll get us past the HT life.
It's not a refresh; it's an overhaul. Let's be honest. Sorry, move on.
All right, folks, we'll wind down here in just a second.
Oh man, woo! That was an episode.
Yes.
That was a whole lot of things. I don't know what I expected any less from the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, the Dadsigner. Or I like how you've been saying our Dadsigner, like
our Dadsigner. He's our dad,
like our father. Yeah, I like that.
Our Dadsigner, who art and brand. Hallowed be thy name.
I don't know how Michael would feel about you creating liturgy. I don't know. Maybe he would like it. I don't know. We'll see. Michael, let us know after you listen to this part of the episode how you felt about a Dadsigner liturgy. If you like it, we can work on it. We do subscription based though. You got to subscribe to us for that. Sorry.
Well done. Good jokes.
Nailed it. No, I love this. I think I know this again. This is like some of the stuff we've been talking about. We're going to be doing in the new Hitech Podcast is deep diving into some stuff that's not just education, but like people using technology, collaboration, techniques, systems to do stuff. And I think what's so cool about what Michael is doing is I wasn't joking about this. Will, I know you're not on the train yet, but I'll get you there. The subscription thing, I want to figure out a way to make it work, because I like
I'm on the
what
train.
Michael's
Choo-choo.
yeah, I like what Michael's trying to do, which is that like especially in a situation where you're working with subject matter experts or contractors, and you're working on these relationships with people, taking the like money component and putting it into more of like a place that just gives you space to have that relationship to work and build efficiency over time, I think is super important. Because I know you and I experienced this pretty early on. It's like any project you get on designing or whatever you're doing, those of you listening, if you're working on a project, you're designing courses with people, you're doing whatever you're doing, when you do it with new people, it's just not going to be efficient from day one, no matter how good you are at what you do. It's not going to be. There is efficiency built up by collaborating with someone for a long period of time. I mean, Will and I experienced this between the two of us. We are efficient when the two of us work together because we know how to work together. We know how to get stuff done. We know when people's schedules. I know when Will makes a face when we're laying out timelines that's probably not realistic, and so we should probably tweak it, even though I know he wants to say yes. Like there's,
I admitted to the one tonight where I was like, I know this is not going to be reasonable, but I want to try.
You're going to try. Will knows how to read behind the lines of my tense statement to him in Discord about something. And we figure out the relational components, there are efficiencies built in time. And we've experienced this with people we've been working with, whether coworkers or clients. Over time, you build efficiency and you end up being able to move quicker through stuff. And so I think a system that allows for that, and not wasting time hold on, let me reword this. Spending a lot of time on onboarding people, like getting people up to speed, having agreements. One of the things I love about what Michael does, like read behind the lines of the systems of what Michael's doing. He's essentially creating a system that gets people into his Trello quickly and kind of having an agreement from day one of what it's going to look like to work together. I'm experiencing this right now where I think a lot of people make assumptions about how they're going to work together. And so there's like these unspoken expectations in projects, in course development, in planning, and all of this stuff that we don't say, and we assume the other person understands what we're doing. And then we get surprised when they don't do what we thought they were going to do. Well, you didn't say anything. You didn't bring this up. There, extreme transparency behind how you're going to do what you're going to do, I think is incredibly important. I think that's what Michael has really nailed, is trying to have transparency and know what his tools are for. If you're using technology to develop courses, to design stuff, to teach, know why you're using what you're going to use and have intentionality behind it. If you do that, then the technology will actually help. It won't be a hindrance, unless, of course, sorry, I have to make the joke. Unless, of course, CrowdStrike sends an update, then it'll blow up everything. But the
Yep, that was 2 months ago by the time this episode.
2 months ago by the time this episode comes out, but there's a really relevant joke right now, in case you're curious. But I think it'll still be in 2 months. I don't know. Will, your thoughts on stuff?
No, I think one of the reasons that we wanted to do this episode, top 2 reasons we wanted to do this episode, we loved Michael's work and we wanted to promote it. Absolutely. Transparent. Completely. Second, though, is he impressed us so much. Josh and I work with each other many times in the month, every day a week, right? Like Josh and I, there's very seldom a time where he and I are not in contact in some way, which means we are using Notion, we are using Discord, we are using email, we are using Calendar, we are using StreamYard, we're using our tech stack to do what Harness Tech needs to do. And Josh made the point, we're pretty good at it. We're pretty good working together. When we were able to step into Michael's system and use it like that, I was just blown away. I was like, this is something that I think folks need to see. Not just Trello. Trello is a great tool to accomplish what Michael's doing. No complaints. But he set up the boundaries. He set up the expectations. He created systems that are as simple as clicking and dragging cards, or clicking into a card and making sure your links are there. Like it's not revolutionary. It's not like he built a rocket system. He used an existing tool and then made very clear expectations on how to do it. And he did it well. So well that a team like Josh and I could step into it with Chris and pick it up from day one and run. And we we got it done. We built an entire brand with Michael's guidance and design in less than a month. We were done before the last hour was used. There was no like 11:59 deadline stuff. We actually got it done in time. So I'm just so thankful for that, but also impressed. And I hope, folks, that you're taking away from this conversation, check out Trello if you want to try this kind of tool and methodology, but really, first and foremost, consider when you're doing this kind of consulting work, when you're doing work with clients, when you're working in a classroom as an instructor, set the expectations, and everyone will be able to work better together when those things are outlined. It's that simple.
Yeah, I would agree. I think taking into the learning and development field that Will and I are from, and what we often speak to, whether you're in education or learning development, too often I see people in course development specifically work with like subject matter experts or clients or business partners, whatever you want to call them, whatever company name you have for these people, that work with you, provide content, help you work on getting the course put together. Too often I see us, and this is going to sound meaner than I intended. Too often I see us accommodating those people by saying, we'll work in whatever you feel the most comfortable in. And what we end up doing is building a system that is less efficient long-term with those people. And so I think we do have to hold the line a little bit and say, like, listen, we're going to work in this tool, whatever tool will foster the collaboration and work the best. In Michael's case, it's been Trello. In Will and I's case, we shifted into really forcing clients into Notion instead of accommodating them. And we found the initial reaction being, well, not necessarily like not wanting to do it, but like still kind of wanting to use the tools that they're using. And the more we got them into what they were doing in there, the more it was transparency behind what all was being done, where everything was, became a lot easier because we centralized things for people. And so I think just like we overpromise a lot of times at the beginning of projects, I think often we hide we want to accommodate thing behind this facade of we're trying to be nice to people. And so for some, that might be the real reality, but I think often really what it is just easier to say that in the beginning. And so I think what we need to do is actually own up to that and deal with the onboarding thing like Michael's doing. Don't just say you have to use the tool and then they have no way of figuring it out. Michael did it with quick recorded videos. We did the same thing, quick recorded videos. I eventually turned some of those things into tutorials long term because I wanted them to be nicer and they were going to be reused. But like do that type of stuff. I think it's okay to release that type of stuff from the beginning and run with it. So anyway, that's a soapbox. I will get off at this point. I think Michael has helped hammer that home for us. Again, if you're interested in any design work, or if you just want, we forgot to mention in this, but you just want some fun fatherly advice, Michael also has a Substack that you can subscribe to. You can figure that out. If you just go to his website, there's at Dadsigner.com, there's a link called advice that will get you into that. You can hear more from Michael. He alluded to that there is a podcast coming. We'll see what that looks like. So I highly recommend subscribing, getting connected with him, whether you're looking for design content or you're not. I think Michael is a wealth of advice for running business, doing work, making things look nicer than what Will and I can make it look like at times from design content. So go check out Dadsigner at Dadsigner.com. Again, it's like dad signing something for you.com. That's what you're looking for.
I'll make one last connection because we started this episode talking about the Candy Factory, right? We talked about that today.
So. Sure.
Michael runs and owns a co-working space in Lansdale, PA, called R5. So that is full circle for this entire episode. We Josh and I are at a Candy Factory co-working space. We love that, but Michael also is participating in that space. So it's just good people end up at co-working. Apparently, like you need to go find one wherever you are in the world.
Yeah. Anyway. So again, go check out Dadsigner.com and you can find out more information there as well. Next week on episode 162, we are going to be diving deep into something that Will and I have wanted to do for a little while. So if you want to preview this, you can go to the Harness Tech website, not Hitech website, harnesstech.us. Ignore the logo. But go to harnesstech.us. You can scroll on down to projects we've worked on. Will and I recently, for demo stuff, decided to take some of what we have done in kind of like low animation, interactive, like gamified learning, right? So like Will and I are not like crazy JavaScripters. For those of you who do learning development, you Storyline, you're building courses. We're not great at building lots of crazy animation. We didn't have access to Vion, which is another tool that does this stuff. But we used some AI and some ingenuity and some fun scripts and had built some stuff for clients doing some of that work. And so we wanted something to be able to show for that. So we ended up building, over a couple months, we built some demos. And one of those is what has been nicely come to terms as the Smoothie Overlord project.
Yes.
And it is quite cool what Will and I were able to wrap up. So next episode, we want to give you an introduction to some of that, what tools we use to do it, what process we use for getting there. So if you're looking to develop courses similar or gamify stuff, or look at some of those principles and how you can use AI and Storyline to do some of that, we're going to be talking about that in episode 162 next week. So make sure you check that out. There'll be lots of cool stuff for you to learn there as well. So, all right, folks, that's a wrap on another week of the Hitech Podcast. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech. Cheers.
Cheers.